The garage door hummed shut as Alex stood there in the dim light of 2026, staring at the faded Honda Civic that had carried him for 10 straight years. Paid off. Reliable. Boring as hell. His phone buzzed again. Another text from his cousin Alex. "You're the one who made it in the family. Spot me $5,000 for this emergency. I know you can swing it." Alex read the words, then let the phone slip back into his pocket without answering. A low, ironic laugh escaped him. "They still see me as that struggling designer," he whispered to the empty garage. "Little do they know I crossed 7 figures years ago, and not one of them has a clue." How does a man who once broadcast every success become the richest ghost in his own family? That question hung in the air as Alex turned away from the Civic and walked back into his modest apartment. At 40, he still looked like the same unassuming designer he had always been. Same modest apartment, same 10-year-old paid-off Honda Civic in the driveway, same quiet routine. Friends and family saw a man who drove a boring car and lived in a place cheaper than he could afford. They whispered that he was frugal to a fault, maybe even selfish. After all, he made $80,000 a year as a designer. Why wouldn't he help more? But Alex carried a secret that made their judgment sting with irony. He had quietly crossed 7 figures in net worth, not by flashy moves or loud announcements, but by disappearing from the performance entirely. The cruel part, the louder he had once tried to prove his success, the faster it had slipped away. Now, by choosing silence, he finally owned the one thing money was supposed to buy: real freedom. Inside, though, Alex felt the constant tug of contradiction. Part of him hated the hiding. He missed the easy conversations, the pride of sharing wins without watching people recalculate what he owed them. Yet another part of him knew the truth every time he had once broadcast a financial win. He had opened a door he could never close again. Cousins with emergencies, friends expecting him to cover every tab, relatives suddenly facing crises that somehow required his cash. That wasn't wealth. That was stress wearing a success costume. So he kept driving the same faded Civic. He kept living modestly, even though he could afford more. And every time someone called him cheap, he smiled the same small, ironic smile. Because the very choices that made them judge him were the ones that had set him free. Rewind to 2025. Alex had mastered selective transparency. At backyard barbecues, he would casually drop general money tips. "I switched to free tools and saved a bundle, but..." Never once mentioned a salary, a balance, or a return. Friends nodded, assumed he was still scraping by, and stopped digging. Their curiosity was fed just enough to keep them from asking the dangerous questions. By 2024, he had built multiple income streams that no one saw coming. Dividend payments landed quarterly from index funds. Rental checks arrived monthly through a company no relative could trace. Yet at family dinners, Alex still complained that design gigs were tight this year. The money kept compounding in the background, while his outside life looked perfectly ordinary. In 2023, he moved his 3 rental properties into Oak Street Holdings, LLC. Public records showed only the company name. When cousins or old friends searched county files hoping to find a wealthy relative, they hit a wall of corporate anonymity. It cost him a few $100s to set up, but it bought him something priceless: the right to say no without explanation. By 2022, Alex had quietly built a 6-month emergency fund in a high-yield savings account. When his sister called about her own crisis that year, he listened, offered sympathy, but never mentioned the cushion sitting untouched. People assumed he was just getting by and eventually stopped expecting him to play savior. Each of these moves felt small at the time, almost invisible. But together, they created a shield. The more Alex disappeared from view, the more freedom he gained. And the irony kept growing. The very people who once demanded proof of his success were now the ones he no longer had to answer to. Back in 2021, Alex made one of the quietest cuts of all. He ruthlessly canceled every luxury subscription that had been quietly bleeding him. Spotify, Netflix meal kits, cloud storage he barely used. $500 vanished from his monthly budget each month. That single decision, invested at 8%, would grow into $290,000 over the next 20 years. No one noticed the cancellations. No one cared. In 2020, he started giving anonymously. He paid for the car behind him at the drive-thru, slipped grocery cards into mailboxes, covered a neighbor's utility bill without a word. The acts felt clean because they carried no expectation of thanks or future obligation. Generosity without applause was the only kind that still felt honest. By 2019, Alex had locked into boring, consistent investing. $25 a week into an S&P 500 index fund started back in 2013 had already grown past $20,000. The strategy was so dull, no one ever brought it up at parties. While friends chased crypto and day trades, Alex's money simply compounded in silence. The real turning point came in 2018. Alex received a promotion that boosted his $80,000 salary by several thousand a year. Most people would have upgraded their apartment immediately. Instead, he froze his lifestyle for a full year, kept living with roommates, and funneled the entire raise, $500 a month, straight into a real estate investment trust. 2 years later, those contributions were generating dividends that nearly covered the nicer place he eventually moved into. By 2017, Alex had already chosen to live in a home cheaper than he could afford. Housing costs stayed under 30% of his take-home pay. Every extra $100 a month he refused to spend on a bigger place became $60,000 in lost opportunity if left uninvested over 20 years at 8%. He told friends he loved the neighborhood. They never guessed he was investing the difference. In 2016, Alex deleted every flex post he had ever made and went completely dark on social media. No house tours, no vacation shots, no salary hints. The pressure to perform wealth evaporated the moment the audience disappeared. That same year, he drove away from the dealership in the 10-year-old Honda Civic instead of signing another $600 monthly lease. The difference in payments alone saved him $36,000 over the next decade. Invested at 8%, that became more than $50,000 in net worth. Person B, the version of himself who once leased new cars every 3 years, had been left behind forever. He also stopped talking about income entirely. When people asked how work was going, Alex answered with the same 4 words. "We're doing all right. No salary figures. No bonus stories. No investment returns at dinner parties." The wealthiest people he had ever observed did exactly the same thing. They discussed sports, food, travel, anything except the one topic that invited expectations. And at the very beginning of 2016, before any of the later moves, Alex set up automatic transfers. $50 every Friday went straight into an index fund the moment his paycheck hit. He never thought about it again. No willpower battles, no weekend transfers. He might forget. The system paid his future self first every single time. All of those choices made in reverse order from the way the world usually teaches them collided in the man standing in the garage in 2026. The twist was simple and brutal. Alex himself had once been the loudest flexer in his circle. Back when he was still person B, leasing cars, stretching for the biggest house he qualified for, posting every raise he had watched relatives circle like sharks the moment any number slipped out. Decision fatigue had wrecked him. Lifestyle creep had eaten every raise, until the day he realized the only way to keep what he built was to make sure no one knew he was building it. That realization changed everything. Alex closed the garage door of the Civic, waiting patiently in the dark. He looked at the unanswered text one last time and deleted it. The same small, ironic smile returned to his face. The very people who once demanded he prove his success were now the ones he no longer had to answer to. Privacy plus automation plus consistency had quietly built the one thing money was truly meant to buy: freedom without explanation. And Ted's here. You see? And here's the deepest irony no one talks about. The richest form of wealth is the kind nobody feels compelled to prove. Privacy plus automation plus consistency equals invisible wealth. You can chase the likes or you can chase the freedom. Most people choose the performance. A few choose the ghost. 10 years from now, you might be the one standing in the garage, smiling at a text you'll never answer. The question is simple. Are you still performing? Or have you finally disappeared?